welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
This week's movie is The Maze Runner. Definitely better. I'll just say that right up front.
Yes.
A more enjoyable movie experience than Divergent, kind of just in every way.
Yeah.
It's like one thing I really appreciated. You know, we talked about the opening of Divergent and how it's like 5 minutes of, you know, voiceover, describing everything, explaining everything and all that. And this movie takes the much more enjoyable approach where it's like, we're just going to fucking throw you into it and you'll figure it out as it's going. Obviously, the story is built around that. Where it's like this kid, he shows up on this elevator and into the grove that's surrounded by this maze and he doesn't know who he is or what's going on. So he's learning as you're learning. Yeah. So the world is sort of, it's a more interactive kind of exploration of the world and not just being told it. I really enjoyed how this movie opened. It was almost like a Saw movie. Yeah. With that like green lighting and there was a pig. It was really creepy. And I liked that the movie kept that sort of like quasi horror tone throughout most of it. I mean, it eventually kind of fell into the generic whatever, but for the most part, it had a fairly unique tone as far as I'm concerned. Again, I don't know that much about YA movies and everything. I'm sort of watching them all for the first time right now, but considering that like super sterile, like it's sort of a future world for Divergent and stuff, that this is like, you can tell it's kind of hitting the same tropes, you know, like even though they don't say it outright until the end, you can kind of tell that it's like, yeah, the world's probably been destroyed or something. You know, there's probably been some sort of cataclysmic event that took everything out. And now it's kind of a post-apocalyptic whatever. Like it eventually turns into that. But for the most part, it's just this mysterious what the fuck of like, so we live in this little box essentially. And there's a maze out there that is horrific. Like it's not just like, hey, head out into the hedge maze. Yeah. It's like there's monsters and it changes and it's dangerous and there's traps and all that kind of stuff. Considering I knew nothing about this from the start, I was like, okay, I'm totally on board. I'm afraid of how they're going to explain a lot of this because it's like I kind of liked the like mystery of it. And I was like, it feels like 9 times out of 10 when there's a really interesting mystery in something, if you really truly fully explain it, it suddenly becomes not so much fun anymore. And it's just like, well, okay. So I was like, all right, I know it's eventually going to get to that point. But while we're in the movie and enjoying the ride, you know, it's going to be fun with this. Just like, oh, what the hell? What is this? What are these things? These monsters that are part animal, part machine. You know, it's like, what the fuck is all this? This is fun to watch them discover. Yeah. Like I said, I liked it. I would say it's a pretty good movie. But the last like 10 minutes or so. See, okay, that's what this movie does. This movie puts the info dump at the end of the movie. Yeah. All the shit that you eventually need to know about the world that they're in happens right at the end. And then it's like, and continue into the sequel. Like, God damn it. All this franchise stuff that they do. Like the way these movies and books and things are built to have a big franchise, it suffers from like the expectations of sequels. You know what I mean? And not that like, oh, could the sequel possibly be as good? But more so like, we need stuff for the sequel. So a lot of the big questions that we're going to bring up, we're going to kind of ignore and create smaller, stupider questions that we can answer in this movie and push all the interesting stuff to like, come see it next summer. Yeah. You know, and it kind of wrecked it for me right at the end. Like, oh, I don't care. Come on. I didn't hate Thomas, the lead character. Yeah. But I did feel like he suffers from similar movie issues of just being bland. Like he didn't really have that much of a personality compared to all the other kids. And truthfully, they've been there for years. He's been there for a day. So it's like, I kind of get it. Like, I see what trick you're pulling, movie, to make it so that he doesn't have to have a really defined personality, but it seems a little cheap. And also, again, suffering from that YA affliction of like, and your lead character has to be special. Something about them is special. I wrote down some more of those goddamn lines where people like act astonished at this person doing things that are like, how 3 years? Yeah. 3 years and no one else ever thought of squishing the bug with the moving wall. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
3 years and nobody else has survived an encounter with one of those bug monsters.
Yeah.
I called them the robo-bugs in my notes. Like nobody ever survived. Nobody ever survived in 3 years. And this kid just like sort of waltzes in and does that.
Thinks to hide in the ivy.
Yeah, like no one thought of that. Like it's not that he's special. It's that apparently everyone else is an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of thinking of the logical thing to do and no one else ever thought of that before.
Yeah.
It seems silly to me. Like these people have been living here for so long and what was the dude who'd been there the longest again? Albie showed up in this grove first and was apparently alone for like a month.
Yep.
And they would send supplies every week, but then at the like 1 month, another kid showed up. And then continue. And it builds up this whole society. I didn't do the math, and especially because they never give you a certain amount of how many kids are there. It's sort of just an ambiguous amount of kids. Like there's the main kids, there's the side kids, there's the kids that don't have names. But, you know, they've been there for about 3 years. So that's what, 36 months, 36th kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I was like, Albie's, with all those kids there, that must mean he's been here fucking forever. But I guess around that time. So yeah, about 3 years, whatever. Makes sense. So he's been here and they've created their own little society to stay alive, I guess. It was a little confusing because it's like they're giving you everything you need to stay alive.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess creating the society is just making sure that people don't just murder each other.
Yeah.
I guess is really what they were doing.
Keeping the peace.
Yeah. This time it worked though.
Yeah.
Unlike Divergent.
Yeah.
I liked the fact that like Babyface fucking Newt, yeah, the fucking literal like man with a toddler's face on him.
Yeah,
that was hysterical. I looked up like the kid. I think he's about 30 now.
Okay.
But he just has super young face. But seriously, when I first saw him, I was like, that is a baby's face. Like not just like, oh, what a baby face. Like that is a baby. That is an infant child's face on that man. So I just called him. I called him Man Baby and Baby Man throughout my notes. But why was I talking about the baby man? Shit, I don't remember where I was going with it. But yeah, so these kids, baby men, have been in this glade for so long. They call themselves gladers. Oh my God, that's what I was talking about. Babyface, he shows the new kid at the time they were calling him Greenie. Eventually he remembers his name is Thomas. Hilariously. Yeah. Did you find that as funny as I did?
I did.
Fucking Will Poulter. Gally is his name. Gally.
Dumb ass name.
Yeah, but Gally challenges the newcomer kid to a fight. And the kid has amnesia. He doesn't know what he is. I wrote in my notes, I was like, oh, he has amnesia, which means he's special. He'll eventually remember how special he is.
Yeah.
But he's having a fight with Will Poulter, and at one point he like trips his legs out from under him. New kid smashes his head on the ground and then immediately goes like, Thomas, I remember my name. My name is Thomas. It was like, because when it first happened, as soon as he hit, I was like, concussion.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit, that was a serious concussion for sure. And then I was like, oh, the concussion cured his amnesia. How convenient for him. So that was hysterical. But so Babyface is showing Thomas around and he's explaining that there are these different crews, you know, like there were different groups in there. And I was like, God, another like factions and shit and all that. Like, God damn it. And I loved that it was kind of just like glossed over. It was just like, that's what these people need to do to keep this place going.
Yeah.
Forget it. We don't care about that. The only ones we care about are the runners who run out into the maze. That's the only group that really has any significance to the story.
Yeah.
Everyone else, it's like they do their thing. Moving on.
Yeah.
I was really happy they did that.
Just so you know, like these groups exist. They like explain it like they exist. Now you know, moving on.
Yeah. So I really liked that. And this kid shows up, like opening the movie, like we were saying, he shows up, he doesn't know who he is. Everyone's real cruel to him, which I thought was like, you'd think they'd have a little bit of sympathy if it happens to all of them. But the fact that they are like more than willing to like make fun, like just laugh at him as he sits there like terrified of this world that he has no idea what's happening in.
Yeah.
And he's just surrounded by all these people and they're all just like, this fucking guy. Like, you're being so mean. Yeah, seriously, you know how scared he is right now. Like they have those like 3 rules or something. It's like never punch another Grover in the face. Glader, whatever, Grover. You're far.
Do your part.
Yeah, do your part and don't go in the maze or don't go in the maze at all. Unless you're a runner or whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's exceptions, but
Right.
like the main rule is like, don't go in there. There should be another rule, which is just like, quit being cruel to the kids who come up.
Yeah.
It's unfair and it's scary to them.
Yeah. You're just being mean.
Yeah.
You guys are dicks.
Yeah, it's a little dickish. So he shows up. They explain this little world to him. They're in this, essentially, I forget how big they said it was. I assume it's probably like a square mile or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know.
But yeah, basically
enough for like forest areas.
Yeah, there's like a little forest in the corner or something. But it's basically just this 4-sided box that they live in. That's, trees and grass, and I think there's a water source. Maybe they just get water sent to them. I don't understand how that works. They didn't really go into it. Not that I care. I don't care. I don't care how they get their water moving. Like, you
Rain,
don't need to. Yeah, exactly. Who cares? And on the outsides of the walls is this just giant, basically unsolvable maze. The way that they were explaining it when they first tell them about it, they go out into the maze. These runners, they're the maze runners. They're the title thing. They run out into the maze and they map it to try to find a way out. Blah blah blah. And then immediately after that, they mention how it's like, yep, the maze changes every night, and you can hear it moving and changing and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool and ominous, and just a really fun sort of feature of it, of the whole scenario. Like, oh shit, it's not even just a maze. But then I realized what's the fucking point of mapping it if it's changing all the time? Eventually, they do explain that it's it changes a specific way.
Yeah.
It has a pattern, which would have been nice to know earlier.
Yeah.
But there's this maze out there. It's full of robot bugs that will kill you, and it changes all the time, and the people are mapping it, and they're trying to find a way out because that's assumedly what the maze is there for.
Yeah.
That was something that I thought was stupid later. Thomas, he explains at one point, I forget when, because obviously he wants to be a runner because that's the most important thing, and he's the lead character, so
right.
they
Exactly.
have to do those things.
Yeah.
But he eventually at some point makes the declaration of guys, it's not a prison, it's a test. And I wrote, duh?
Yeah.
Is that not obvious? You are clearly put here by someone, and there's a fucking maze out there. If it was just wilderness, or it was literally just the doors open and evil bug monsters come in and murder you every once in a while, then it would seem like a prison.
Yeah.
If there's a fucking maze that is the definition or the point of a maze to exist is to solve it, then yeah, it's a test. These kids have been here 3 years. They don't understand that. They needed this kid to show up and be it's a test. No shit. Why is this special? It was weird. Again, one of those things where it's he doesn't, I don't know. I was thinking about this a lot. I just realized in my reading career, I guess is one way to put it, I kind of skipped over the young adult section of reading. You know what I mean? I read, Goosebumps, which is while it's not for babies, it's clearly for kids. It's not a teenager book. It's for kids. Or
it's your first chapter book.
Yeah, or the Matt Christopher books, the sports books and all that. I read those, again, not really for teenagers, really for kids. And then at a certain point, it was obviously I've mentioned many times, I love Jurassic Park. When I learned that Jurassic Park was a book, there was a book that the movie was made out of. So it's you could read Jurassic Park. You could read the movie Jurassic Park in this book. Oh my God. So it's I'm just going to start doing that. I'm going to start reading these books. And while Jurassic Park is not great literature, it's clearly an adult book full of adult situations and words and things and whatever. So I just kind of skipped over that whole young adult, getting into books that were bigger, real novels and less so little books. I skipped over the young adult versions of it because it's I want to read Jurassic Park. I have Jurassic Park right here. Why do I need to read Billy and the Clonosaurus to work my way up to it? It's no, just fucking read Jurassic Park. So I kind of skipped over all that. So I don't really understand the obsession of making the characters quote unquote special. You know what I mean? It's in all of them, apparently, they're sort of chosen for it or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. Go to fucking Star Wars, one of my favorite movies ever. Luke happens to be the son of a great Jedi, Anakin Skywalker, and blah, blah, blah. This random kid out in the desert happens to be special. Like, I get that it's a big thing in the entire world of storytelling.
Right.
I don't understand why YA novels are almost exclusively like that. You know what I mean? Like, no one's ever just, like, the lead character is never just like a regular kid. You know, they're always like, oh, they're connected to this, or this is what makes them stand out completely. Like, the stories can never be about a normal person doing something. It's always about a person who maybe thinks they're normal, discovering that they're way better than normal and going on and being great. And it's like, why not just a regular person realizing that they're good enough to be great? You know, it just seems weird to me. Yeah. I never connect with these YA protagonists in any way. I much prefer a just normal ass character. You know, these people tend to never have real flaws.
Yeah.
They'll have really superficial flaws, but it's like it's never a thing where it's like they're going to make the bad decision or they're going to make a horrible mistake. Everything winds up working out pretty fucking well for them.
Yeah.
Like when he decides to run into the maze because the other runner is coming back with Alfie, who's been stung by the horrible monsters, and the kid Thomas decides that literally the last second to run through the closing maze opening into the maze, which will leave him there overnight. No one's ever survived overnight in the maze. Remember that? As soon as they said that, I was like, well, he will. You know, that'll be one of the first things he does.
Yeah.
And so he runs off into there. It's like, it's a terrible decision in an actual tactical sense. Like, you really don't know what you're going up against. You've never been out there.
Yeah.
And you're just deciding to do this. And you're just getting yourself killed. That's what the fucking guy tells him. As soon as he gets in and the door's closed, he's like, good job. You just got yourself killed.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's a terrible decision. And then the fucking bug monster comes and the other guy just wants to run away. And he's like, no. We have to take this comatose person with us. You know, and it's like, okay, so you've never been out here. You don't know what these monsters are. You don't understand how to survive out here. You have now you've saddled the other guy with your presence.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then also are now dragging him down even further by being like, we also have to carry this essentially corpse around with us, you know, but again, it's not the wrong decision because he miraculously thinks of things that these people apparently have never thought of before.
Yeah.
And he squishes the bug in the moving wall. And that, of course, will lead to the rest of the story. And it's like, all of those decisions, like waiting for that bug to try to bait it into the wall, again, was the wrong decision. That's a bad decision. But the movie will never play those things as a mistake.
Yeah.
It's always like in service of showing how great he is. Because then once they get out and they've survived a night in the maze and he comes out and they're like, oh, you guys survived against a griever? And he's like, he didn't just survive, he killed it. And they're like, and it's like, by making bad decisions, he killed it. You know, and it's never an actual mistake. It's always, you know, it always just makes him more of a hero.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so that's, you know, if they had given him like one actual thing of like, okay, you know what, we're going to have you go out into the maze. Like you're going to get shadowed. You're going to shadow someone going out into the maze, and they're going to go on like a really easy route just to sort of get you out there. And then he makes a terrible decision in the maze and he gets that other person killed, and then he feels shitty about it. And he thinks that he has to like prove himself and make up for it. That's compelling.
Yeah.
That's like, oh my God, you know, and you might see him think about his actions for a moment, you know, and be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I need to think things through. And if I really want to be a hero, I have to be better than this. But no, he goes out there and he's like, I'm a hero. Look at this. I'm better than this. Like he's immediately better than it. And it's just lame. I don't like it that much. It always just feels like they make the right decision, even if it includes making the wrong decision. It will always lead to something good later, one way or another. Yeah. And it's like there's just never that moment of like, you fucked up. You know, that's really what it boils down to. They never have a moment where they have to sit and look at themselves like, I fucked that up. And not just like, I didn't win the Dauntless test, but like I got someone hurt, got myself hurt, something went wrong because of me. Yeah. And it affected people. And I have to suffer some form of consequences for it, more so than just like, I failed the test or something like that. I don't know.
Will Poulter did try. He wanted
Oh yeah, he wanted to
Thomas.
punish him.
Yeah.
And that was sort of why I had a hard time rooting against Gally.
Yeah.
As much as like eventually he became much more of a dick.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I thought he was really justified.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like the movie was trying really hard to cast him in the villain light.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm not feeling it yet, movie. You're not there yet. Because this kid truly doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And he's breaking all these rules. They've lived by these rules for so long. Like, I 100% was on Gally's side.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then towards the end of it, you could tell he had gone like kind of crazy with the weird shit he was saying. Like, we must sacrifice them to the maze. And then, you know, and it was like, oh, okay, he's gone off the deep end.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, you know, I don't feel like he's asking for too much to be like, can we not give this guy the keys to the kingdom one day after he gets here? Yeah. He was not as like unreasonable as the movie tried to make him seem at first. So then when he eventually went crazy later, I was kind of like, oh, you know what? That's almost a shame because I kind of liked him.
Yeah.
Like he had a way to, like, at least he had some principles he stood by.
Yeah. It would have been nice if he had, you know, caved at the end and followed, but
I mean, clearly at the end I don't know if I want to get into it right now, but I just had this whole like series of thoughts at the end of that movie with Gally and where he winds up.
Oh, we haven't mentioned Chuck yet.
Oh, Chunk.
Chunk.
No, his name is Chuck. I thought they were calling him Chunk the whole movie.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't until the scene where it was clear he was going to die at the end of the movie when he gives Thomas the little thing, the little figurine he made for his parents that he doesn't remember. Yeah. And then Thomas calls him back to give it back to him, like, you'll give it to them yourself. But he like calls out to him and it sounded like Chunk. And then he went like, Chuck. And I heard the end K really hard without the N. And I was like, oh, it's Chuck, not the demeaning nickname Chunk. Oh my God. Because like they make a point earlier in the movie that he was the green one before Thomas showed up. He was the one who just showed up and was getting hazed. So I thought he had gotten the nickname Chunk. Yeah. And they were still calling him that. Finally realized, no, it's Chuck. It was weird. Like, I could tell that kid was supposed to be like a quasi comic relief character, you know, who's clearly probably not going to do any action oriented stuff except to maybe sacrifice himself towards the end of the movie, that kind of thing. Like I kind of I saw his path mapped out ahead of him as soon as he showed up. So he wound up kind of just like washing out of the movie to me. It's like he was there and I didn't really pay much attention to him. I don't really remember much he did.
There was one line in particular. That kid Ben gets stung.
Right,
goes crazy.
He's one of the runners.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, good. Now there will be an opening on the team for Thomas. You know?
Exactly. And then they like just throw him to the maze at the end.
Oh my God.
Essentially.
That whole thing.
Like, you're going to die. You're going to go crazy. We can't control you. So go in there and die in there. Uh-huh. And Thomas and Chuck are talking about it. And Chuck specifically says, you just got to forget about him. And then like rolls over to go to sleep. I was like, that is so cold for a kid.
And it kind of almost, I mean, I agree. And that's like a fun little moment. Does bring up some weird questions about their society. Because it's like, okay, 36 months, let's call it, 3 years, 36 kids. That seems about right. But for Chuck to be that cold and dismissive about it 1 month into his stay, how many kids have died that way in the month since Chuck showed up to when Thomas showed up and this one happened, that he's already over it and like, you just got to forget about the terrible screams of their murders out there.
Yeah.
I've already blocked him out. It's happened every day. Like, but there's still plenty of kids.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a number disparity there, or this kid just never had any empathy at all.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, you just got to forget about it. Like, Jesus, how many times have you seen it? Like, no, this is the first time. I just get it.
I just know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, sorry. So that whole sacrificing sequence with Ben, it's just a silly thing where it's like, you have this sickness that that will take over and eventually make you murder people. And then will eventually kill you. They don't explain.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the disease works.
Yeah, like it's apparently incurable, but there's no like, like, oh, and then the fever gets crazy and you start vomiting up your insides and then you die. It's just like you go kind of crazy and you try to attack people and it makes you violent, but you're still conscious, like way conscious, like not, there's no cognitive issues. You're still there. You're just uncontrollably angry or they don't really go about it, but they're just like, it's incurable, just toss him in the maze.
I mean, the kids did say that when they were like interrogating Ben that they couldn't get any straight answers from him. And so
did they? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah. And then they asked what he said to like whoever it was, whether it was like Albie or Newt or whatever.
Oh, no. Albie asked Thomas, what did he say to you?
Yeah.
That I was wondering why it was in there at first, because he tells him like, it's you, you're why we're in here, when he attacks him. And then later Thomas tells that to Albie when he asks, like, what did he say to you? And he's like, oh, he said that I was the reason that we were in here. And I was like, why would Albie ask if he said anything to him other than to move the plot along of like having Thomas say out loud to other people this rumor that, oh, maybe he's a part of it, something like that.
Yeah.
It did sort of dawn on me later, though, that I was like, well, apparently it makes you remember shit when you get stung.
Yeah.
Like it helps you, it jogs your memory as it's murdering you.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It like,
it unamnesias you.
Yeah. Whatever.
For a moment.
Whatever the people that put you in there gave
did.
You.
Yeah. Whatever they did.
The venom from the griever.
Like fights through it apparently. At least briefly.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I was like, okay, if that's true and they know that, then I guess you would want to know what people were saying.
Yeah.
To be like, let's see if they remembered anything interesting or that might help us. So I was like, okay, I get why he would say it now.
Yeah.
It did make the whole thing kind of silly though later when Thomas stabs himself with the venom to try to remember something, or is just like, what a fucking shot in the dark that is. Like, maybe this will help.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, thank God that girl was sent up there with those 2 anti-venoms for some reason.
Yeah.
They don't explain that.
Yeah, like it's incurable, but you have a
cure? But there's like an anti-venom that will stop it.
It's essentially an EpiPen for the disease.
Yeah. So Thomas smashes the bug in the wall. Sounds so much lamer than it seems on. Yeah, he smashed a bug. He crushes the griever between the moving parts of the maze.
There you go.
And he and a bunch of other gladers, I think they're supposed to be called. It's just like, you don't need a name. But him and a bunch of them go out to do like a griever autopsy on it. Because it's squished in there and there's like parts of it that are sticking out and there's like guts all over the ground or whatever.
Yeah. The like lead runner, I
forget his name too.
Something with an M.
It's like Miho or something like that.
Yeah. Reaches in for it, and then there's some sort of like reaction from the griever, and like the leg moves or something.
Oh yeah. And then they
yank the leg off, and then get the thing that's flashing.
Yeah, they pull out this little thing that they like. If they don't know what it is, it's just this weird piece of machinery from inside the griever. Because, like we said, it's like part bug, part machine, and it's this little thing, and it's got a flashing red light on it. And a little screen with the number 7 like flashing on it or whatever. And the
initials WCKD.
Yeah, for the company or whatever that's doing all of this wicked. But then Thomas, they find this thing in the bug and he pulls it out and they're all arguing about it later. And there's one of their little council meetings or whatever the fuck. And they're all arguing about what they're going to do. And he says, who knows where this thing might lead us? And I was like, where what might lead you? This device that you don't know what it does or is? Like, it was just a thing in a machine. There's why would you immediately assume that it could possibly lead you anywhere? And the fact that he is 100% right later, that it not only can help them, but becomes a wayfinder for them, that literally shows them the direction to go in the maze, was like 1 in a billion chance that he's right when he says, who knows where it could lead us? It could lead us out of here. It's just so, it's like you might have just, if he like pulled out like a gear I was like, who knows where it might lead us? It's like, it doesn't lead you anywhere. But since he happened to pull out the magic wayfinder device, it does in fact lead them out of there.
That's why it was blinking, because it was special.
Just like him. At around this point in the movie, another kid comes up in the elevator in the middle of the glade. And they're all like, what the fuck? Because I think it's early, right? Like it shouldn't have come up yet. Because it looks like they're all confused. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because they weren't even ready for their next like supply.
Oh, yeah, because he's only been there like 3 days.
Yeah.
And another elevator's come up and they're like, what the fuck is this? And it's a girl. And she has a note with her that says she's the last one ever.
Yeah.
And the elevator also doesn't go back down either. It's just sitting there. And I was like, oh, this is so fucking refreshing. The plot moving along, like something, like things are changing outside of the control of these main characters in a way that's going to push them towards doing what the whole fucking movie's about, running the maze. Where it's like, now you have, like, there's no, if nothing else is ever coming back and all your supplies are done for, then you got to fucking, let's go. You got to figure out this maze shit.
It's now or never.
Yeah. Lucky he found that wayfinder device. I don't know. I keep trying to think about it, like trying to think of the way that it would have been better instead of just having him show up and basically show everyone how stupid they are. Because that's really what it feels like. It's like these people build this society. They've mapped this maze. Like, they're clearly not complete idiots.
Yeah.
They've been able to map this entire maze and have learned how it moves and all of that. And they just can't quite figure out how to squish a bug and steal its wayfinder device. Like, that's apparently the only way you're going to fucking get out of here. Because, like, him and the other dude are walking and the device thing starts beeping, or I think it's more like a Geiger counter kind of clicking. It's not like beep, beep,
yeah,
beep, beep.
I definitely thought it was a Geiger counter at first.
Yeah, like, oh shit, guys, no, don't.
Like,
yeah. But they use it, and as the signal gets stronger, it leads them to this area, and it leads them to this door that opens up, and then like a laser scans them, and then like immediately after that section of the maze starts to change.
Yeah.
And they have to escape it because it's going to like fucking kill them. It's going to like crush them. Or
they'll be trapped because they're in the blades
they'll definitely
at that
be trapped,
point.
Possibly killed, depending on where they are. But like the way that they got there, even like, it's like, oh, we're just going to use this device. It didn't seem like Thomas like discovered some sort of new way to go. You know what I mean? Like
he didn't. He was just following the signal. It wasn't until that like first door opened that the other kid.
Oh yeah, he's like, oh, I've never seen this.
Yeah, that was what was new.
Yeah, it was the device that helped open the door, I guess. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Which is like, I guess you could give the secret society who devised this whole thing the benefit of the doubt and be like, maybe there's like 4 or 5 other ways that you could do this.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that there's a griever for each section that has a device, and there's a door for each section then. Right.
It's just like, I don't know. It seems so weird to me that like they want, I mean, okay, we kind of have to go into what the ending of the movie is to sort of talk about this, just because it really does kind of just like confuse me. It's one of those weird, like, it's like, it's a plan that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Like as a reveal to this mystery that you've been wondering the whole time, it's kind of a letdown, and it's kind of like, oh, really? And it also just doesn't make sense in retrospect. But like, so you kill the monster, you steal its device. The device leads you to the door that then opens because you have the device. Like, you could find that door 1 million times. If you don't have the device, it doesn't matter. It won't open.
Right.
So you have to kill the monster to get the device and go further and discover whatever. And then it scans you and it tries to kill you. And like, that alone seems confusing, that it's like that they couldn't have just escaped.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't have just walked up to it with that thing and been like, open up now. And then it opens and then they're cool and they can just leave. Seems like when you find it, it murders you.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what happened there. It may have been just like timing, that because the maze was changing.
It would just happen. It was about to change, and that was completely coincidental. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. It seemed like the laser, like it scans them and then it like goes berserk. Seemed like what was going on. But like, you learn by the end of the movie that this place, like they're in there to be tested, obviously, the maze. And it's to scan their brain waves. or something. Like the
I
kids, I guess that horrible disease that they're stinging the kids with these monster bugs is the disease that has like wiped out most of the world.
right.
Like the world got like scorched by a solar flare, and then this horrible virus came and killed most of the people, and now the world is like a horrible desert scape. And kids, like the next generation, I guess, I don't know exactly how it was going. I'm sure there's more explained in the sequel.
Yeah.
But then like the next generation has more of a resistance to this disease. So I guess that's why it doesn't kill them in the maze. It just kind of fucks them up. Where it's like, okay, humans are getting stronger each generation against this disease. Maybe we can use these kids who are stronger against it to find a cure for it for everybody.
Yeah.
Which it seems like you already have because you gave it to the girl.
Yeah.
Which it just didn't make sense.
That did not make sense to me.
Yeah, but
either.
it just seemed absolutely insane. Like this maze, A, gigantic. B, it moves. Giant fucking stone structures move.
Yep.
Constantly, like clockwork in this whole thing. When was this built? You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know what year it is, so
what I want to know is like, so solar flares kill everybody. This virus takes over. This wicked place is like, holy shit, we need to figure out how to solve the issue of this virus. And their response is to spend decades building the most intricate maze to test these kids, to test their brains? What the fuck? What does that mean?
I have no idea.
It was such a letdown. I was hoping it was like, we are training you to be warriors to fight the bugmen of Mars who came, or something where like anything in this maze might be used. But it was like, no, we're just putting you in there so we can scan how your brain is working. It's like, you couldn't just do that?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't just scan their brains and be like, let's see why they're different. It's like we have to put them in this fucking maze.
Maybe they did try. Maybe that was the whole them in
this
thing.
was the end result. It was like we started low. We started with just like scan their brain.
Probes, little nodules on their brains or on their heads.
Yeah, that didn't work. So then we resorted to putting the things on their heads and going boo. That didn't work. So they just kept upping it and upping it and upping it to the point where it was like, we got really out of hand. We built this giant labyrinth. It's fucking amazing. It would be so cool if it wasn't being used for this. People would pay to go here.
Yeah.
It wasn't full of bug monsters.
Yeah. Giant deadly robo-bugs.
Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown to learn what this whole thing was about. It was like, it really has nothing to do with the maze. It's just like,
it's just a test.
Like, see if they're smart enough to get out of the maze. Which is like, what does that have to do with a virus? Like,
they're trying to find the strongest wavelengths. I don't know.
It's like, but
I don't know brain science.
It's more just like your ability to survive and think hard would have no bearing on how well your body fights off a virus. Like, they're not connected at all. That's what was so baffling to me. Just like, what does one have to do with the other at all? And they do not explain. It really, and then they're like, you're moving on to phase 2. And then the movie ends because you're supposed to go and watch phase 2. It's just like, I don't really understand what phase 1 was all about. I'm not ready to move on to phase 2. I need to figure out what was going on because none of this makes sense. So they use that. They find the exit thing. They go back and get the kids and they're all like, we're gonna fucking peace, man. With the girl who's there. She really doesn't fucking do anything except say more of the goddamn YA shit. Where is it? Oh, why are we different? What if we were sent here for a reason? It's like, and again, these are the mysteries that the movie sets up and will flop onto the sequel to answer.
Yeah.
And instead, or even Wicked itself, and where they got these kids, why they're putting them in, why they're putting these kids in there, why Thomas and Teresa, who I was like brother and sister, but they never explain.
No.
Why these kids who apparently were working with Wicked eventually got sent into the Glade.
Yeah.
You know, is like, are they literally out of kids? And they're just like, these are the last ones. I don't know. You guys got to figure it out soon. You know, it's like, were they willing? Okay, here's the thing. Were they willing to let all of those kids die in that maze and be like, well, guess there's no cure? You know, with how hard and impossible this maze is. The fact that it moves every night. The fact that you have to get a thing out of a bug. Like, what if they figured out that you could bait the bugs towards you, but then, you know, find a special way to get out of the way and just let them all fall off those cliffs that are, you know, randomly in the maze. And that is how they decide that they're going to always kill the grievers because it's the best way and it gets them out of the way. So they never, ever, ever, ever find those things because their corpses are all at the bottom of the cliff. And eventually the kids would die. Eventually it would just be over. Especially when they randomly open all the doors and just let grievers in to kill them. If they're supposed to be here to save the world, like if you need them to figure out how to fucking fix your problem, but you're totally willing to make an impossible maze that will surely kill them all until Magical Thomas shows up. What are you doing?
I have a feeling that the whole like finding a cure thing isn't their real motive.
Like they're eviler than just like, we're doing it for good, but we're gonna do evil stuff to you. They're really just evil deep down later on.
I feel like that would be like the best way to go.
I mean, it would definitely make things make more sense in terms of why they would do all of this. Like if they were just like,
it's fun.
Yeah, really.
That's better than because we want to test you.
Yeah, it just seems silly. So Teresa and Thomas and Man Baby and all the other kids, except for Gally, they all decide like, well, fucking here it is.
And a couple others stay back with Gally.
Yeah, but they're dumb and we never see them again and they're probably dead, whatever.
Oh, I'm sure.
So they're all like, all right, man, we're going to go. We're going to go back to that spot and we're going to see if we can get out that way. And Gally's like, no, fucking don't, because he wants to sacrifice them to the maze. Like we were saying earlier, he goes like super crazy. Yeah. And he's like, oh, we're going to sacrifice these two newcomers to the maze because they have clearly angered someone. Yeah. And that's why the grievers are coming in. Yeah. And all that. So he's gonna let them out. But then everyone sides with Thomas. And they're like, no, man, we're going to go and we're going to fucking find our way out. And you can come if you want, even though you clearly hate us and are going crazy. But that's what we're doing. And Gally's like, fucking fine, go. So they all leave. They go into the maze. There wasn't nearly enough mazing for me. I was hoping for more moments like what they almost had happen when I feel bad. I don't think his name is Miho, but I keep calling him that.
It's Minho.
Minho, okay. When they were running through those blade things and it looked like they were about to get separated, but then Thomas like runs through the blades and he gets to the other side. I was hoping for like moments like that where all of a sudden parts of the crew would get like trapped behind a different part of the maze and they'd have to figure it out. Yeah. But it kind of just wound up being really straightforward. There's like, let's go right this way, going over here. There's really barely any mazing in the movie. Yeah. You know, which is a little disappointing.
There's a little bit when Thomas is in there for the first time that night and Minho just bails.
Yeah.
And then he's running around trying to get away from the griever.
Yeah. It was like that. And then when he and Minho go and find the door. Yeah. That was really it, though. I was like, for a movie called The Maze Runner, there's a whole lot of grass sitting. Not a lot of maze running. They go back to the spot where they found that door. And grievers are coming after them. A couple of kids get eaten. It's a little gruesome. Yeah. Like I said, right, kind of right at the top, like the movie does sort of keep that horror tone for most of the movie. So like the sequences with the grievers, even if I wish they were a little cooler, I don't know, something about them just seemed kind of like, that's generic.
Well, it's the PG-13 version.
Yeah, I guess. I wanted it to be a little scarier, but they treat them like they're scary, which is good enough for me in terms of like keeping that atmosphere up of like, oh, it's coming around the corner. Like, oh, fuck, there it is. You know, so they're getting attacked by grievers. A couple of kids get chowed on.
Or tossed off the cliff.
Yeah, or tossed off the cliff. A couple of the grievers get smashed by like rocks and shit, or they get knocked off the cliff too, this and that. They get through the door because there's a code. Like this was the part that made me realize like this maze is impossible. The fact that they got through is sheer like moronic luck, not even just dumb luck. Because it's like you get all the way there. You get to this door. You're fighting off a half a dozen to a dozen grievers.
Mm-hmm.
All this shit. And the final thing is that you have to type in a code.
Mm-hmm.
And the code is the sequence that the maze goes through when it changes.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's only Minho that knows it.
Yeah.
And he's like being eaten while they're asking him for it. Where it's like, if this was 15 seconds later, you're done. Because I know he makes it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they get the Griever off of him and he doesn't wind up getting eaten.
Yeah.
But if it was just like out of nowhere, like, Griever, wow, gets him. And then they get to the fucking door and all of Thomas's specialness can't help the fact that, oh, fuck, none of us know the combination.
Yeah.
Because he just got eaten. Like, insane that they ever thought anyone would make it through.
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of lends credence to your whole thing of like, maybe they didn't?
Yeah.
Maybe they expected everybody to die? Like they expected the maze to be completely unsolvable? So them getting through made them go to plan B?
Well, they did say the one woman from Wicked at the end did say like they didn't expect so many survivors.
Yeah, but that's because Thomas was all noble and he wanted to bring everybody with him. If he was a dick or if he was selfish, he would have figured it out and just been like, let's just go.
Mm-hmm.
But also, he wouldn't have been able to do it because Minho knew the code. And he didn't.
Yeah.
So it's like...
He would have gotten all the way there.
And then gotten eaten eventually because he got cornered.
Yeah.
But they get into this, like, laboratory, which is when it started really... Like, I think they had shown all those, like, premonitions and special dreams that Thomas was having. And they would show, like, a lab and the lead lady. So you know that there's some sort of, like... scientists in a lab doing shit, like subplot going on.
Yeah.
But once they like got there and, you know, it's like, oh, and everybody's dead and, you know, people have been shot and clearly crazy shit has happened in here. And then Gally shows up. He kind of becomes the de facto bad guy because when they show up to like the office or the lab, you would almost expect like, and here's the people who put us here. Let's take them out. But they're all already dead.
Yeah.
Or so you think because you see the woman kill herself apparently. And then later she's not dead. So it's clearly fake. And so they're kind of the big bad guy. But the movie doesn't feel like explaining all of that yet. And it's just going to push it off to the next movie in the franchise, which might even push it off to the next movie in the franchise, depending on how much they want to stall. So in this case, it's like, oh, and the bad guy, it'll just be Gally. Remember Gally? He's back. You know, and it was so funny because he shows up there and it's like, wait a minute. How did you get here all by yourself? And it's like, well, I guess the door just stays open after you put the code in.
I guess.
But either way, like he gets there and he's clearly been stung and he's like going nuts and he's aiming a gun at them and he's all mad and whatever. And I was just like, man, what a fucking rough deal for Gally, because you can almost imagine that's like maybe he didn't come there to kill them. Maybe he was just like, maybe we do need to get out. No, he's definitely there to kill him. Now that I think about it, because he's like, we fucked it up. The maze, it needs what it needs, and blah blah blah. And you need to go back, or you need to die, or whatever.
I belong to the maze.
Yeah, I belong to the maze. He's gone crazy, and it's, you know, instead of explaining all of the bad guys, they're just like, we're just gonna give you this dumb little bad guy, and be like, what if someone became attached to the grove and never wanted to escape? And it's like, I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
but that's the question they decide to answer for us instead of the actual answers that we want. And then, was it Minho who threw the spear to kill Gally?
Yes.
Yeah, so he throws a spear that kills Gally, stabs him like right in the heart. Ish.
Yeah.
Right, in the chest. Yeah. And I was going to call him Chunk. Chuck leaps in front of Thomas, who's about to get shot. And it just so happens that he does get shot. Like, he pulls the trigger as he gets stabbed, and you don't see where it goes or whatever, but Thomas is okay. And then Chuck all of a sudden starts bleeding.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hysterical, that it's like, it goes off and no one reacts.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He just missed.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's good. You know, no one has to die other than Gally, who was going crazy anyway. So, okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Chuck's just like, oh, by the way,
yeah,
he's bleeding all over the place.
Like, what?
It's like, where'd that come from?
And why didn't you react to being shot?
Yeah, earlier. It's so weird. And then they have their little, oh, Chuck, oh, and he gives him the thing back. He gives the thing back to Thomas. And he takes it with him.
Carving.
Yeah, to like, always remember my little goofy friend. And they have this big old death scene for him. And I was like, okay, Moving on.
I did write, like, is anyone really surprised that Chuck didn't make it? Like, no offense, he didn't really bring much to the table.
No, yeah, I literally wrote in my notes, Chuck is gonna die. Well, no, sorry, I wrote Chunk is gonna die. as soon as he gave him that thing.
But yeah, at the end there, I definitely thought that Gally was gonna say something about like him being in on it. And he was supposed to be the one to stop them from leaving or something. Yeah, definitely thought there was going to be some sort of twist like that to it. Was a little disappointed.
He's just crazy. I mean, that's essentially the end of the movie. And then some guys come in with like SWAT team guys, and they take all the kids out to a helicopter, and they give him a little bit of explanation about like what happened. I forget, like all of that information gets given to them. Some of it from that video from the woman, some of it from the guy in the helicopter. I forget who gives what. Yeah. Whatever. But then he just mentions how it's like, you're moving on to the next stage in the trials. And
the woman said that. The guy in the helicopter said like everything's going to change now. Which was something that had been said like twice before in the movie.
I was gonna say there were so many moments that were such obvious like trailer lines where it's like they're unspecific enough that you can hear them out of context and just be like, interesting. Like I understand what that means, you know, but they're also just so vague and generic that in the movie you're just kind of like, okay, but what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, we'll tell you later. Yeah. Helicopter.
You know? Let them look out the window at the maze for like a second, and then they all sit back down.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, well, whatever. It's just a place that we lived for the last 3 years. Who cares? A lot of our friends died there. Whatever. And then I think it was the last line in the movie, so the last note that I wrote in here was just, they could be the key to everything, that the lady says. And it's like, what? The key to what? I still don't know. Also, man, so much of the music in this movie, it's just faux Hans Zimmer. You know, it sounded so much like Dark Knight and Inception, like smashed together and all these different themes. I mean, I get it. Yeah. 2014, so fucking, you know, you've basically had a run every 2 years of like Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, that bombastic Hans Zimmer blockbuster score that it was just like, at that point, it was like, that's what you get. If you have a blockbuster movie, that's the music you need because that's what works. Yeah. So they just use, I didn't even look it up. It might have even been Hans Zimmer. I don't even fucking know. He does all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah, he does.
So it's like, who knows? But it felt very much like get me Hans Zimmer. Like, he is unavailable. Like, get me his non-union Mexican equivalent. But yeah, overall, big improvement. Big improvement over Divergent. I had much more fun watching this, which just made it all the more enjoyable. It felt, I looked into it, and this one was only like 153 minutes or something like that, so like just under 2 hours. But it definitely flew by way quicker than Divergent did. Like, Divergent felt like it was like 4 hours long. This felt nice and brisk. Like, there we go. That's what a movie of this style should be.
153
Sorry,
minutes.
an hour and 53 minutes.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
it's 153 is a little bit
absurdly
over.
Long.
little over 2 hours there, hon.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the goodwill from this carries over long enough to make me not want to kill myself after watching Twilight.
I'm here to support you.
Because this, I mean,
it's going to be so much fun.
It's like last week I was like, I don't know how Twilight could be worse than Divergent. I feel like I'm ready for it. And you're like, I don't know. So now I'm really concerned for it. So I'm hoping that,
it'll be all right.
I'm hoping that the good vibes from Maze Runner at least keep me going through Twilight so I don't fucking go crazy. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for Popcorn for Dinner this week. This is Jeff.
And Callie.
Wicked is good.